Hi, Adam here from Wardtone Records in Hampton, New Hampshire, and today I'm going to talk about my 10 biggest pet peeves as a patron of record stores. It's safe to say now, believe it or not, that I've been going to record stores as a customer for over 30 years, and I found a lot of things to love about record stores, but a lot of things that I did not love so much. And one of the reasons I opened a store is to try to work on some of the things that I don't love so much and to highlight the things that I do love. I would like to say before I jump into this that I am very much a student of running a record store. I've been in business here on Lafayette Road in Hampton, New Hampshire for just over 3 months, and I sold my very first record at a pop-up just a little over 1 year ago, about 1 year and a couple weeks. So I am by no means an expert. I'm learning every day what my customers want and what makes a good experience, and I'm trying my very best to bring that to the great people who patronize us here at our store. The other thing I would like to say is this is not a specific knock on our other community of local and regional record stores in the area per se. I have been to record stores all over the United States. I've been to record stores in Canada. I've been to record stores in Europe. I patronized many local and regional record stores which are no longer open. So it's not a knock per se specific to the closest record stores nearby. It's more of a general thing that I've noticed over the course of 30 years in visiting record stores on at least 2 continents and in at least 5 countries. The first pet peeve is poor condition. And by the way, before I start, I will say that I'm not necessarily limiting my critiques to brick and mortar record stores that are only selling records. This could also pertain to antique malls, it could pertain to variety stores, it could even pertain to big box retailers like Barnes & Noble or Walmart or Target that sell vinyl. So it has to do with the in-person vinyl buying experience. Mostly about record stores, but also could apply to other places where you could buy vinyl. So from here we'll jump into it, starting with number 1, poor condition. Many times I've been browsing through records in various places and discovered that, I find a great record that I love. I open it up, it's completely full of mold. It could be very dirty with grime and crud to the point where you can't tell if the record is permanently damaged or not. It could be scratched all over with giant gouges. All of these things are bad. Sometimes the jacket is completely torn apart, giant seam splits on the bottom and top of the record so that it pretty much falls apart when you open it. Now, when it comes to vintage vinyl, you're never going to have perfection, and sometimes there are major flaws, but a record could still be worth purchasing. I am trying to call out any major flaws in the price tag. So if it has seam splits at the bottom or the top where the top 2 seams are completely coming out, I try to call that out. If there's a particular spot that I notice is skipping, obviously I would reduce the price dramatically and I would then call that out. It is impossible for a record store owner to actually find every flaw with a record. It is not possible to play test each and every record, but on things that look questionable, they should attempt to, and I've been to plenty of places where absolutely no effort whatsoever was put into assessing the condition and applying that to A, whether or not they even want to have that in their store, and B, how should that impact the price? How should that impact where the record goes in the store? Does it go in the main bins or does it go underneath in a heavily discounted area? So that's number 1, poor condition. Next we have number 2, high prices, particularly unreasonably high prices, which would suggest that the record store owner either doesn't know the market at all or is looking to essentially rip off the consumer. Prices are going to fluctuate based on the region you're in. I live in a particularly high cost of living area, so record store prices around here tend to be a little bit higher than if you're in a place with very low cost of living. That is to be expected. What I'm talking about here is prices that are double what they should be or triple. Record that routinely goes for $8 or $9 that's going for 30 or 40. And you see that all throughout the inventory. That just shows that they're really looking to rip off people who, have no idea, they're new to the hobby, and I don't think that's any way to build relationships with customers and bring back repeat business. So high prices are a big, unreasonably high prices are a big pet peeve of mine. Thirdly, we have rude staff. But I'm going to expand this a little bit to say rude staff, condescending staff, aloof staff that doesn't care at all. This is pretty common in record stores, unfortunately. The Jack Black character in High Fidelity, that is a pretty good representation of what you sometimes get. You should watch a clip of that if you don't recall the movie. It's a great movie. But, rude staff, they're going to judge your musical taste, that can't be bothered to give you the time of day. And also there seems to be at times in certain record stores a competition among the various staff members to play the loudest, most abrasive, most obnoxious music, the smallest percentage of the people browsing in the store would enjoy as possible. I am all for musical variety and self-expression and cathartic music that maybe isn't for everyone, but when you have a competition to put, the most difficult to enjoy music on in the store, that probably is not what most of the customers want, and I find that to be pretty annoying myself. Number 4 is poor selection and its close cousin, stale inventory. When I talk about poor selection, I'm talking about, complete... I'm not being super picky. I'm talking about complete genres that are major genres being completely missing. A record store that has no hip-hop. A record store that has no folk. That's maybe rarer, right? Because there's usually folk records mixed in with old records. But, if a record store only has new or only super obscure stuff, or it only has... dusty classic rock records in poor condition, or, old easy listening records. There's nothing wrong with that kind of music. It all has its market for sure. But if you only have one or two kinds of genres, that is not a recipe for a great record store, in my humble opinion. This happens to be my favorite genre, which, I've yet to see that. So I'm not talking about, a record store that doesn't have many or any of a very obscure or difficult to find genre either. For example, it's hard to source a lot of city pop, Japanese city pop in the United States. I'm still kind of working on that. I've gotten some requests, but I'm talking about if there's a major genre like metal and you don't have any of it. That is not, in my opinion, a great way to go for a record store. The 5th one is a little bit specific, but this is a huge pet peeve of mine, and this is putting the price sticker directly on the jacket of the record. Now, I've seen, excellent records that are really beautiful and really irreplaceable, first presses of various records going for $50, $100 or more, where the owner or, the employee took one of those price tag guns and just slapped it right onto the cover. A beautiful first press of a record going for a lot of money, and even for ones that are not going for a lot of money. I don't think you should do that. I understand that there's sometimes a concern that if you put it on the sleeve, that a customer may switch out the sleeves, et cetera, et cetera. That's a valid concern. Thus far, I have had zero problems with that. We also have cameras in our store all throughout. And, if you bring up that $60 first press of a Smiths record and it's ringing up as $5 or $10, we are going to notice it. And we're also going to have you on camera. So I don't think that's a great excuse. I've found great records. It's a beautiful piece I would love to frame. And then, when you try to unstick the sticky thing, it peels off part of the record. Now, I have been basically religious in trying to avoid this, and I did make the mistake once of putting a price tag on a beautiful matted box set because I did not have a sleeve that fit it. It was a George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, first press. And it did, I started to peel it off and it did leave that mark. And I'm telling you, never again. I definitely feel that I didn't do well by that particular customer. So I'm going to find another way to do it, even when things don't fit into the sleeves. That's how passionate I am about this point. So if you're doing this and you're a record store owner, please just stop. I find that it's more the norm than not. And if you're selling a $60 record, like, put a sleeve on it. Please clean it and put a sleeve on it. Dirty records are another thing. That's not even on my list, but I ultrasonically clean all the vinyl that's above $7 in the store. Selling dirty records, particularly at high prices, is definitely not a turn on to the client or the customer. Okay, so moving on here, we have no new arrivals section. The next few are more things that my customers have mentioned, but I would agree. This doesn't necessarily bother me personally, but for regulars who come into a record store, once a week or maybe even more often, if we're lucky enough to have customers like that, they want to have a new arrivals bin so they don't have to look through every single thing in the store every time they come. And I really couldn't blame them. So as soon as I heard a request for a new arrivals bin, I immediately put that in the front of the store. Things do move through it very quickly. Sometimes things are only there for 3 or 4 days because we are constantly expanding and constantly bringing in new records, but we do have a new arrivals section. It's right in the front of the store, and so that's something I think that every record store should have. It's very easy to do. Another thing I have had a request for, which I fulfilled, is a listening station. Customers also are not happy when record stores don't have a listening station, and I can understand that. If you're looking to buy an expensive record or even an inexpensive record, and you're very curious what the music sounds like, or you're very curious just to make sure that one little spot doesn't skip where it doesn't look quite perfect, we have one now, and I'm happy to say we're going to be upgrading the turntable on that very soon. So we have something now. It's not the best turntable. It will work. It has headphones. You're welcome to use it whenever you come in the store, and soon we will be upgrading it. Another one, I think we're up to number 7 or 8 now, is poor grading, or no grading. So on the vintage vinyl, I try to put a grade in the upper right-hand corner. I do put a grade on everything $8 and above. Near mint, VG plus, very good plus, very good, fair, or poor. I don't actually put out fair or poor records very often at all, pretty much never. You can definitely look up what those mean. They're fairly self-explanatory, and you are also welcome to open the records up and take a look or play test them. Some record stores get annoyed or angry when you look at the condition of the records. If you're being careful, we will never do that here. I think my list is expanding above 10 items as I think more about this, but I really want to make it the best experience possible for folks that come into the store, and I've not as often had that as I would like. I just have a couple more here. Bad return policy. So, all sales final type policies, particularly on things that maybe are not in the best condition. If you get something home and it's been represented as being VG plus and it's skipping on your record player, and your turntable has been well maintained, and it's not a very low end turntable, which everything will skip on a Crosley basically, but or a lot of records, more than should. But if you have a reasonably new stylus and you have a decent turntable and something that I rated VG plus or near mint is skipping, please bring it back and I will work with you. I trust you to be careful with the record. I trust you, if you are having an issue, bring it back. If you get a new record and there's a defect, for example, there was one record one time that was brand new that, it basically was cut into pieces in the mail. It kind of broke into pieces, and what looked like just a ding to the corner of the jacket was also, the record chopped off. I've gotten this a couple of times when I've ordered them online. Just bring it back. With new vinyl, you can't bring it back if you feel the mastering is, just a little bit too, too up on the highs, that's not a reason to bring it back. But if it's, cut up, if there's like, chunk taken out of the record, or if you open a, if you open a Frank Ocean record that you get from us and it has a Kenny G record inside, that's one, that's actually happened, not with those two specific artists, but that's happened where, the manufacturer put the wrong record in. Of course, please bring it back and we'll take care of you. And then the very last one here is cramped or disorganized stores. So, the record store is not your basement, it's not your closet, it's not even your living room. It should be, arranged in some logical way. The way that I arrange ours is there's 17 genres here, and they're all alphabetical by genre.